I, for one, welcome our new corporate overlords. The last several days have been incredibly instructive. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that these events have been some of the most important events in my lifetime. YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all the big tech giants have made it as clear as they possibly could that they have far more power than even the President of the United States currently has. Just a few months ago, these people literally swore in front of Congress that they did not censor people based on their political views. And now President Trump has been depersoned on every single major platform. They have made it clear the president himself literally does not have any right to communicate with the American people. And if they can do this to Donald Trump, they can do this to anyone. At least anyone that is not on their side. Because what these events have also shown is that clearly the president is not the most powerful person in America. Who is? I'm not quite sure. But I am confident that there is a whole host of people that they couldn't get away with deplatforming. Could you imagine, for example, Twitter banning everyone from, say, MSNBC, all of their on-air presenters, for pushing wild, wacky theories? We know they have, indeed, pushed wild, wacky theories, ones at least as wacky as anything Trump or his supporters ever have. Certainly, you could say that the freedom of the press in a democratic republic is essential, but it is hardly any more essential than the ability for elected politicians themselves to be able to talk to their constituents. Whether it's the media, academia, or the leaders of big tech, it's clear that there are many people that hold far more power than the president or other elected politicians. To many, perhaps most conservatives at this point, it is quite clear that we have entered the cyberpunk future that we were warned about for so long. In fact, we have probably been in that cyberpunk future for longer than most realize. That is, the future in which corporations hold more power than elected politicians, and where corporations are able to set the agenda, with politicians playing a smaller role. It's funny because I remember being a former libertarian and a former liberal conservative, and I remember all the arguments that I used to deploy against the idea that it was even possible for corporations to be more oppressive than the government was. After all, only the government really has the power to compel you to do things. As bad as some corporations can be, they can't forcibly oppress you the way the government can. You'll always be able to go to Megacorp 2 if Megacorp 1 is really bad. And if Megacorp 1 and 2 are really bad, then surely competition will bring about a Megacorp 3, which is less bad than the others. And now that we're here, now that the cyberpunk future has ripped off its mask, we've seen that all the megacorps aren't in competition with each other. They're all colluding with each other for the exact same goals. Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, none of them say, hey, we could make tons of money by hosting the President of the United States on our platform, and by being the only one of the major social media platforms that hosts his content. No, they're all of the same mind. They are all clearly saying that their ideological hegemony is far more important than whatever amount of money they could make by being the one major platform that doesn't do this. And to those that have tried to build their own platform, these same major platforms have made clear that they'll do everything in their power to pull away any support needed to build your own platform. You'll need to build your own payment processor, you'll need to build your own servers, you'll need to build your own everything. I remember being a libertarian once, making the argument that collusion, cartels, they just aren't really viable in the real world. Because, yeah, sure, it's possible that all major corporations in a given field could work together, but the incentive for just one of those corporations to break line with the rest is way too great, because the amount of money they could make by not going along with the deal with the rest of them is just way too big of an incentive to expect them all to fall in line and all to work together. The theory that collusion doesn't make sense just does not stand up to the reality that it's actually happening right now before our eyes. And yeah, sure, it's possible to mount some sort of opposition, to start your own company, but all of this alt tech that we have has nowhere near the power and the backing needed to measure up anywhere to the size of big tech. But I don't want to be too harsh on my libertarian friends. I know most libertarians have understood the problem that just saying get the government out of it is not an adequate solution to the issues that we're currently facing in regards to censorship and other issues. My problem here is to just analyze the mentality that I myself used to hold, and that I do know some libertarians continue to hold. However, the true irony here is we know the group of people who have been the ones that have been warning us, not just for a few years, but for decades, about the power of big corporations and how they're going to be the ones who will be in charge. And if we don't curb corporate power, then they'll be running our democracy. They'll be running our information streams. The people making these warnings were not right-wingers of any type, libertarian or non-libertarian. The people that were making these warnings for decades were left-wingers. I was the one brushing off their warnings. And they were the ones saying that this would become a big issue. And now that it's finally here, the left, they're all on board with them. There's the occasional dissident leftist who refuses to sign on board with neoliberal dominance. But for the vast majority of them, it doesn't matter that they have a flower or a hammer and sickle or ACAB in their bio. It doesn't matter how much they say Marx is epic. It doesn't matter how much they say that they hate billionaires. They're the ones that are on the side of the big corporations, because the big corporations are pushing their social policy. Okay. I know. Conservatives whining about left-wing hypocrisy is really old hat. It's really annoying. So much for the tolerant left. We've all heard it from normie cons a million times. It's really annoying. We know the left are hypocrites. There's no point in continuing to whine about it and just continuing to point it out, as though they're going to finally realize, oh wow, we should stop being hypocritical. However, there is something that makes this particular brand of hypocrisy quite interesting from the left. That is, the left warning about corporate power, and then later going on to celebrate that very same corporate power. Other types of hypocrisy from the left are much more clear-cut, like the most famous one, so much for the tolerant left. The answer to so much for the tolerant left is the left never really valued tolerance in itself to begin with. Tolerance was just something that the left ever called for because they believed they were the ones on the outs and they wanted to normalize things that were not yet popular enough with enough people. And then once those things were normalized, they no longer had any desire for tolerance. They wanted instead cultural hegemony. So the reason for that particular type of hypocrisy is it's just a thinly veiled guise, which is required to get their actual agenda across. Once we find the left to be strangers to the very tolerance that they demanded, it is only because they no longer require that tolerance. Because they never wanted a tolerant society to begin with. They wanted a left-wing society. So that's the classic type of left-wing so-called hypocrisy. But the reason why this type of left-wing hypocrisy, the left's acceptance and even celebration of our new cyberpunk dystopia, the reason why this type of hypocrisy is so much more interesting is because, unlike other hypocrisies from the left, it isn't just a way of them getting what they want. Because left-wingers do sincerely hate corporations, and they do sincerely hate corporate power. They just also sincerely hate right-wingers, and they sincerely hate anything that is right-wingy. Therefore, the reason that this particular type of hypocrisy comes about from the left is because there is a clash between two values. Which do they dislike more? Right-wingers and right-wing beliefs, or corporations and corporate power? And clearly we see that the vast majority of left-wingers, whether they are communists or liberals, care far more about curbing the power of right-wingers than they do about curbing the power of big corporations. This is the classic Lord of the Rings Ring of Power situation. The left is happy to give all of the power to people who they themselves claim are evil, who they themselves have been warning us for decades that they will tyrannize us. They are happy to give them power if they will accomplish their aims. This is the clearest proof that we could ever really need, that most left-wingers, and it doesn't matter if they have a hammer and sickle in their bio, they don't really care that much about the economics when it comes down to it. What they really care about are the cultural issues. To them, real communism is when massive corporations censor all of your political opponents. And as long as left-wingers of all stripes continue to see this as their most important goal, as long as they continue to believe that their social issues are far more important than their economic issues, there will be no serious hope for them ever to achieve those economic ends that they always claim are so important to them. As long as this is what their priorities are, they will continue to trade infrastructure for diversity classes and redistribution for pronouns. Thanks for watching. Please donate to my Patreon or Subscribestar if you enjoy this content. And please remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and share these videos with anyone who you think will enjoy them. And a special thanks to my donors, yourself, Siphius Rex, Lita, Quo Pregranator, Haxorius, Adzutko, Josiah, King of Evil Florida and the Moon, Seth Apex, Richard, Cringewalker, Zian Harris, Thomas Thomist, Windowlick, Augustine, and Skytoucher. Thanks everyone again for watching, and goodbye.